Welcome to Masters of Momentum, where strategy has soul and leadership drives real impact. I am Sharika Hines.
And I'm Roquita Coleman Williams. If you've ever wrestled with how to grow your brand, lead with conviction, and stay grounded in who you are, today's episode is for you.
We're talking about the real work behind the brand, the kind that builds legacy and not just likes.
And our guest, she embodies that. While Lori Taylor is a strategic advisor for Goldman Sachs' 10,000 small businesses, chief brand officer for Brown Girl Marketing, and a brand builder with edge and heart, and a fierce advocate for women scaling with integrity.
She gets what it takes to lead with clarity, protect your capacity, and move at a pace aligned with purpose. This episode is about building what's real and learning how to move with intention and not just speed.
We're honored to have her. Let's build momentum.
Welcome, Lori. We are so happy to have you on Masters of Momentum. How are you today?
Wonderful, ladies. How are you both doing?
Doing good,
Doing
doing good.
fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Yes, yes, yes. Now let's get into it. Why, Laura, you've built your own brand and advised hundreds of others. In your experience, what separates the brands that last from the ones that fizzle, even when the product or vision is strong?
I think our founders these days are you use the word momentum. So I'm going to talk about that. We're constantly doing, we're pitching, we're posting, we're doing all the things for our brand. And a lot of these startup brands, especially, are solopreneurs. So they don't have a full team there to help them. And what I've seen is sometimes you ever start to go somewhere. I'm gonna use this analogy because I'm big on analogies. You know that about me, Sharika.
Mhm.
If you get in the car and you start to go and you don't really know where you're going, you eventually have to pull over, get your phone out, and then put the directions in, right? And unfortunately, I think a lot of us fall into business or get started in businesses that we aren't realizing will become full time for us or careers or a pathway to generational wealth. And so we haven't truly laid the foundation or we haven't done the pre work. We're just in the movement, right? We have the momentum, but there's no like, let me pause, let me reevaluate, let me see the direction I need to go in. So I think that sets apart, as you asked, a lot of it's not just successful, but I think it's a lot of businesses that really grow and scale in a more economical, a more financially sustainable way.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, using your analogy about driving, let's talk a little bit about blind spots. What are the most
Mm.
common strategy gaps you see that women keep from owning their lane fully?
So interesting you say that, Rokita. I believe, and especially women, right? So we have superpowers. So
So we think.
that's who we are, right? We do everything and we wear all the hats. And I think that's one of the deficits that we carry over into entrepreneurship is that we wear all the hats. We don't hire fast and fire fast would be my second one.
Mm,
And then my third one is we we don't look for the talent to cover the gaps. Like it's a really hard thing to look in the mirror and say, I need help. It's another one to ask for it. So if I rewind and I say we wear all the hats, we can't wear all the hats because we all know, even in the best diversified portfolio, something's going to shine better than others, right? The second piece is we don't hire the appropriate talent. And then when we do, hiring fast and firing fast, whether it's a misfit for culture, a misfit for synergies, alignment. Those are things we have to make quick decisions in our business. And part of being a small business is the ability to be nimble and to pivot. And then that third thing, asking for help. Sometimes it's not just in who you hire, the talent, the capacity, it's also in the help that we need at home. Do we now need to outsource laundry, even though we have a washer and dryer? Do we need to ask mom or grandma or sister, auntie, internet auntie to watch the baby for 2 hours because we need to catch up, or we just might need a mental rest? So I think the
absolutely.
biggest thing stems from that whole superpower mentality of women
That
in
is so
particular.
good. And I'd like to bring some life to that. So when my business was, I started as a solopreneur, and then I would hire 1099 independent contractors when I needed someone to bridge a gap. Well, last year was the first time where I had to say, it's time for the business to scale. I am not the best person to actually lead the scalability of the business. That's going to be my good friend and experienced businesswoman, Raquita Coleman Williams. And so then I invited her in to be the president of Polished. Super impactful for us because she had the vision. We had synergies that were aligned, but she also had the expertise from corporate America and growing businesses. So you're right, asking for help. And then, secondly, with the help at home, I am often cajoled for people being like, you're just so bougie. Like you have somebody coming in, organizing your house and doing your laundry. Well, here's the deal, I have about 25 hours of free time a week. I can't spend 12 and a half of those hours cleaning and doing laundry because I need my mental capacity. I need time to rest and to recover so that I can remain creative, so I can think about the business objectively, and so I can take a step back. So I hire the people to do those things. So I'm not wearing all the capes. So I just want to bring a little bit of life to that. Now, while Lori, as a strategist, what do you look for when evaluating whether a woman led business is truly ready to scale?
That's there's a myriad of things, right? I always ask the question because most people come to me because they have a retail goal in mind, right? We want to be in Sephora, Ulta, Target, Walmart, wherever we want to be, Whole Foods. And I say, can you sustain it? And then people
Mm,
say, well, I have investors. I can work with my contract manufacturers. And I say, do you have enough customers who are aware of your brand and will support your brand at shelf? Because I think we can build this amazing team and support system behind us. But what truly drives and propels brands is really customer commerce. People have to
mm,
actually buy your brands. You can get on the shelf. Getting on the shelf is probably like 20% of the battle. We talk about the 80-20 rule. Getting people to go in and actually, Sharika and Rokita, to buy a brand new brand that they've never heard of, never seen, never experienced, that's a really tough thing to, catapult over top
yeah,
of,
wow.
is
Yeah.
to really go and say, I'm going to get my brand on shelf. People are going to love the packaging. They're going to look at it and buy it. Yeah, boo, that's not how it works. So I think when we look at a brand's ecosystem, we can have as strong of links as we want, but the weakest is going to be the most telling about our sustainability of our brand. So if your weakest link isn't awareness, but it's how your cash flow and how you manage your finances, that's going to be really telling. If you don't
Mhm,
have a good handle on your operations, don't really understand your inventory, your movement, your capacity for innovation, because innovation spurs new purchases, keeps your brand, gives it life, right? You're not going to sustain. And then if you don't have a strong customer base, a foundation who know your brand, love your brand, promote your brand, buy your brand, then you're going to struggle there as well.
Mhm.
And as you talk about those weaknesses, we often see those weaknesses become real pain points and threats to the business as the marketplace shifts, right? So, how do you guide women leaders in evolving their brand, less hype, more substance, but without diluting what makes them very unique?
I think one of the most strategic things a business owner can do is pause,
Mm,
right? We glorified, booked, busy, blessed for so long, and then somehow we shifted and entered this soft. Your intuition really speaks to the still moments. If we think about in the quiet times, our spirit speaks to us. And I'm a big believer in there's a reason we have intuition. We talk about it in terms of women's intuition, but I think it's an overall. And when I'm coaching clients, I like to look at, what are our reflective checkpoints? Are you working in alignment? Are your numbers telling you the story you want them to tell you? Or is it time to recalibrate? Is the most powerful thing you can do right now is pivot, or is it rest? Are your systems tight, your audience engaged? How do you know it's time to scale? If your demand is growing, it clearly indicates people are loving the brand and you need to do some things so that you can move in that pathway. Momentum, right? You can carry the momentum.
Mhm.
But I think, the key is to listening. I just did a seminar a couple of weeks ago on social listening, which really taps us into customer centric and how people are responding to our brand. But we also have to listen to our body, the data. Data insights is really huge in branding. Your team, you have to actually pause and stop long enough to go, I'm ready to scale. What does this mean? Because more inventory may mean more personnel. More personnel means more expenses. More expenses means more funding. More funding means perhaps more equity dilution. We all of these things, there's a cause and an effect to growth and scale. We talk about it, and I'm a mom, and I know you guys understand this tremendously. If I am 100% focused on something for my business, I am not 100% focused on motherhood. It just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen. I'm a wife too, right? So I realize, and I think the Sunda, kudos to her. She's pretty amazing. The Sunda Brown, she said it best, which is there's a diversified portfolio of her life. 100% of the pie, if she's giving 20 here, 60 here, and then another 20 here, over time, her portfolio is growing, her investments are deepening, right? But at any given time, that pie is shifting depending on what role she's showing up in her life. That same thing is true for businesses. When we think about a
Mm-hmm.
business, if your consumer demand is growing, it's causing shifts in your business elsewhere that you now have to be responsive to. And the best way to do that is to pause, reflect, and plan.
That's so good. Pause,
Reflect
reflect,
and
plan.
plan.
PRP. Is that it?
Pause,
Pause,
reflect, and
reflect,
plan.
plan. Let us pause
Mhm.
for a minute. Pause, reflect,
Reflect.
and plan. So if you have momentum, you're thinking about scaling. I think one of the things that you can do right now is just stop and pause, reflect, and plan, maybe during the duration of this episode. So now, why, Lori, you work with founders who are often stretched thin. We talked about that, wearing many capes, being super. How do you help women discern the difference between being in alignment versus just emotion?
So Nidra talks about this in boundaries. Y'all can see I do a lot of reading, right? Nedra talks about that in boundaries. And I think even saying no to good opportunities can lead us to
Mm,
greatness in the end. And sometimes, we say a lot, and I have a daughter, so I tell her all the time, no is a complete sentence. And I'm doing that so she sets boundaries and the things that are uncomfortable to her at her age. At my ripe age, no is the power to choose my level of exertion and tired. Really, it's like I understand better at this age than I did at her 19-year-old self what my capacity is, where I can lean in and where I can't. So, one thing for founders, entrepreneurs to remember is while you may be the face of your brand, you are not completely your brand, right? You still have to refill your cup, you still have to
mm,
refresh. And the funny thing is, those things are true about your brand too. You still have to refresh your brand. You still have to refill the cup. And sometimes I think we're so intertwined in this IRL, right? Everything happens in real life. Sharika's entire life goes into her brand. I want to know what she's doing outside of her brand. And I'm not mad that consumers want to know who's behind the brand because that allows for values and vision and alignment. So I'm not mad at that. I also realize though that you have to protect your peace
mm-hmm.
in order
Mm.
to show up as your full self. And so when founders are doing all the things and the momentum is really flowing, then we also have to make a space that we don't lose ourselves at the same time. So there's some coexistence there. Sorry, there's some coexistence there, and it's really based on intentionality. You have to be intentional about where you show up, how you spend your time, what gets to use up your energy. That's a real process, and it's something that I feel like we grow into that over time. You're not born with the ability to dictate and
Mm-hmm.
understand. That's wisdom and experience that gets you there in knowing yourself and knowing your limits and understanding your boundaries.
That's so good. Let me ask a question. Can either of you think of a time where you had to say no to a good opportunity?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Personally, I've had times when I recognized that I was out of balance with who I wanted to be. I was out of alignment with who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity represented a previous version of myself. It
Mm.
wasn't today's
Good.
version of what I needed. It wasn't today's version of me is leaning into taking care of my family, making sure my children are well. That version of me that opportunity showed up for was a version of me 5 years ago that was title chasing. So
Ooh.
absolutely you
That's
but I
good.
think we're brought those opportunities for the purpose of having alignment. And that is a form of
Mhm.
boundary. Knowing what's in alignment for you is a form of boundary.
Can you think of a time, why, Lori, where you've had to say no to what was on paper and really, realistically, a real good opportunity?
I love Rokita's example. It's such an exercise in discernment is what you just
Mm,
explained here. And I love that.
Thank
And
you.
discernment is it's like it's euphoric, right? So discernment is something out of body. I love that. I have recently overcommitted myself in lots of ways, and had to turn down quite a few opportunities that I felt would elevate not only my personal brand, but overall Brown Girl and make it
Mm,
a lot easier for me to get clients. And I realized I had taken on some, I'm gonna say some volunteer extracurricular things. And I now have to look at how that balance or that perfect harmony
yes.
leads into bank building versus just brand building opportunities.
wow, that's good.
Bank building.
Bank building.
Interesting.
What do you mean when you say bank building?
So I think the easiest one is as speakers, because we're all professional speakers here on the platform. Sometimes we do things that align well with our brand and will position us for future opportunities. And we speak either at a discounted rate or at no
Mm,
rate, right? Where we get maybe the deliverables of social, the audience, the connections, etc. So we get intrinsic things and not hardcore bank account dollars. So I think that's a brand building opportunity. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people. When you're starting out, your brand building may be very strong compared to your paid or bank building opportunities. But I also allow in my calendar, if I say for every 5 bank building, I am allowed to have 2 brand building. And I also realize that sometimes the brand building is something that I just enjoy, or an audience that I know needs to hear something I have to say. And I'm okay with that situation. I also realize, though, that bank building is why my business exists. It
yeah.
employs contractors. It allows, my husband and my family and I to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So I am very cognizant about that too. I always think there's a way to have perfect harmony, whatever that looks like to whoever is in control of that in terms of brand and bank building.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's consider the personal aspect for a moment. What boundaries have you had to hold to stay connected to yourself while leading at a very high level personally?
So my family comes first. Um, I have kids from 19 through 5-year old. So we have a pretty deep range here. My 5-year old said to me a few weeks ago, Mommy, do you have to work tonight? And that really hit me hard as a mom. And I don't have mom guilt because, 5-year olds will say things like, you're a horrible mommy and you've been in the park for 3 hours, right? Just because you
Yes.
have to leave. So I also recognize when their statements are done out of frustration and not from a spirit where it should come from, right?
Hmm.
When he said that, though, it was a simple question of, I've noticed recently that your computer comes to the dinner table. You go back on
Mm,
it after dinner. You go back on it after you read a story, and I'm in my room. And if I walk in your room, you're working. So in his mind, mommy had overly committed to working. And I
Mm,
said, let me do some different things. I clearly have to get up earlier because if I need those extra hours in the evening, I need to adjust in the morning when everyone's still sleeping. So now I have an alarm and it goes off early, an hour earlier to give me an hour to address that. Because when I go to dinner, I'd like for that to be the end of most of my nights. It won't be all of my nights, but I don't want him to believe that work is interfering or intersecting in our time as a family. So that was real eye opening. And it was just an innocent question for me.
that's so good.
absolutely. So similar to you, I have a deep range. My oldest is 30. My
Mm.
youngest is 13, and then I have a 3-year-old grandson. And my 13-year-old was my lesson in being present because we were riding home from school one day, and he says, "Mom, you're not listening to me." And I said, "I am listening." I repeated back the three or four things he said. He says, "No, when you're not listening, you nod your head and you say mm-hmm, mm-hmm, like you do at work."
Oh, wow.
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 So he'd observe behaviors that I use at work that to him demonstrated not listening. He's like, yeah, you're treating me like one of the folks at the job. You're not listening to me. And that was my oh gosh moment. I was like, if I'm not
Mhm.
listening to him, then I'm most certainly not present in the work, in the impactful work that I should be doing as a leader.
That's so good. Children can be the best mirrors. They will give you the truth that you did not ask for. Now,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Why, Laura, you talked about moving at a pace that matches vision, not urgency. What does that actually look like when making high stakes decisions?
We have to look at what aligns with our identity, right? What aligns with impact. Those are some of my favorite words. You have to build your core values because that's always your North Star, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about decisions and you're really torn, you go back to who you are. And again, another analogy or one of my favorite examples is, do you know how many people told the founder of Chick-fil-A the amount of money, and it was actually a study done, he would lose by not opening on Sunday? But his core value was he had strong faith and religious beliefs. And so Sunday was always going to be his day off. Has it
Mm,
made them less successful? I don't think
No.
so. So when
mm,
some of my founders come to me, I'm like, just remember Chick-fil-A. They still are not open on Sundays,
right.
right? Um, and so I say to people, make sure you look at not just how it aligns with your identity, look at the overall impact of who you serve and how you serve. So you're going
So,
to look at those two, I would say two parallel verticals, right? And those things should be in tangent or complementary to one another.
I'd like to
absolutely.
just point out, highlight something that you said. You need to know your impact and your identity. Is that correct? Right. And you need
Mhm.
to know who you serve and why you serve. Those are
Mhm.
answers that you come to in the pause. That's why we keep saying you
Mhm.
need to pause, right? So you
Mhm.
can understand your identity and your impact and who you serve and why you serve.
Well, and speaking
And
of
if I can
impact,
interject, oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go
Oh,
ahead.
All
go
right,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the irony of all of this is everything you're talking about is momentum, but we forget that momentum is motion, and sometimes motion can slow down and still give you the same momentum and scalability. So go ahead.
That's
Mm.
good.
So, momentum is not necessarily the pace of movement, is what
Mm,
I hear you saying.
yeah.
All right.
No,
So you said,
it's not just about motion. It's meaningful progress, and sometimes progress comes after the pause,
yeah,
right?
Meaningful progress, not just progress, because not all progress is meaningful.
no,
Mm-mm.
absolutely
That's so
not.
good.
Or you're talking about impact. You sit at some major tables, Goldman Sachs, advisory boards, executive rooms. What's one thing you wish more women of color knew about power and positioning?
That's
Let me
good.
pause. I was like, that's such a good one. Power and positioning. I think we have to remember people do business with people they like and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter the table you sit at, your personality and your story help build your likability and your trust factor. We like to align and connect with people. So I feel like at those tables, sometimes we come with a pretense and you really have to be authentic to yourself because even the seats at the table that we think we want, sometimes when we get there, we realize it's a disconnect and it wasn't what you thought from the outside, right? So that's why so many people have created their own seats, right?
Yeah.
Their own tables. For me, again, it goes back to likability and trust. How do you work with people? It's why when I interview people, I ask about, have you ever been on a team? Team sports teach you a lot of dynamics in your
They do.
personality, how you show up, how you deal with winning, how you deal with loss. So those are some things again that you look at, and Sharika will know this, and Rokita, you probably know this too from hiring and running your business, but Sharika, especially in the HR world, there are some questions that will indicate a window into your personality.
Very true.
And it's
Mm,
assumptions in some ways, and we know what happens when you assume. But I believe there's some data and some statistics that say certain things, certain environments make people stronger candidates for certain roles, right? So again, go back again to likability and trust.
yeah.
Very good. Now, why, Lori, what would you say to the leader who's built something solid, but now feels stuck in the maintenance phase and unsure of what's next?
I have a lot of those folks, and I'm always like, why do you come to me at like the ninth hour? Didn't you know my name? Didn't you know my name in month two versus month like 18? Nobody said my name to you before then. I think there's learn from that. That's the first thing I say is learn from that because sometimes we can save those businesses and sometimes we can't. But
Mm,
the lesson you learn in futility and asking for help sooner, in letting go of your ego, your pride, in pausing before you keep running, right? I think those are all lessons that carry you into the next phase, whatever the next pivot is, so that you can show up smarter and stronger the next time. Now, the other piece of that is if you're coming to me and the word we use, unfortunately, is distressed, right? You're
mm,
distressed. And that could be you're just overwhelmed. It could be financial distress. It could be talent team capacity distress. It could be you don't have resources, whether you're looking for a product resource or you don't have clients coming in for whatever reason. When you're in a distressed situation, reevaluation is really key because a lot of people who become distressed also lose the love and the luster for their
Mm,
branding,
yeah.
for whether it's a personal brand or a product brand. And it's okay. Sharika and I talked about this, and Rokita, you'll know this from having kids as well. I give my kids permission to shift. And
Mhm.
my favorite saying in business is shift, SHIFT, happens. It really
I
does
love
happen.
it. We have to pause for that. Shift happens.
Sure.
SHIFT happens. And you're absolutely right.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's definitely a
shift
keeper.
happens. We always want to say, the other word happens, but no, shift. And even at the time when the shift comes, the pivot presents itself, we may not be ready, but we have to
Mm,
plan what's our next move no matter what, and shift. If our kids are playing a sport and they come home no longer want to play it, you can't quit in the middle of the season, but at the end of the season, if you choose not to renew, I'm going to support that. Now here, the rule in our house though is you also got to find a replacement, because what you're not going to do is come home from school and be bored every day. Like, we want to keep you active, we want to keep your mind challenged, and if that means you go from soccer to art, that's fine. If you go from
yeah.
karate to playmaking or candle making, I'm fine with that. I just want you to stretch your possibilities. So if you, as a founder, find yourself in the middle of a shift or a pivot, one is to embrace it because there's something on the other side. There's a lesson in that. I don't know what it is. It may be you need to go out of business. It may be you need to sell your business. It may be you need to find a partner. That's what Shark Tank is for, right? To find your shark so
Yeah.
that they can get in the water with you and help you survive and give you some things that you're lacking. I don't know what it means for you, but I clearly do know when we enter these phases, we have to do a better job of embracing them rather than running from them or ignoring them.
Very good.
Shift happens. All right. Well, finally, I want to ask what's fueling your momentum right now, personally or professionally? What's fueling your momentum?
I take a deep look. So I've been pausing a lot more in this re-entering the entrepreneurial phase. It's funny because I think, Sharika, you knew me in between all the phases, right? I call myself
Yeah.
an entrepreneur. I'm in corporate one minute, I'm an entrepreneur the next, I'm in corporate
You're
another.
flexible. You
Just
shift.
I thank you. There you go. Shift happens.
Yes.
I do. I shift. I like to be challenged, and when the right opportunities hit my desk, I am all about alignment. So I'm trying to work on the same things here at home meaning me personally, not in my house. Let me speak to that. Meaning me. I am working on what does exercise look like? If it's not at the gym, is it Pilates and walking 10,000 steps a day? Is it getting outside? Is it just going to the store by myself and walking around just to be inspired? Is it a museum? So I'm also trying to figure out those things in my life. So I would say the busyness has its place, and I've been really good in this stage of entrepreneurship because there were some times where I was just running, right? The hamster wheel. This time I'm sitting back, and customers are causing me to pause. I've had potential clients say something to me that's like, okay, that's why she doesn't want to work with me. Let me pay attention to that. And it can be something as eye opening as I reached out to you and you didn't follow my brand. And so I'm not so sure you're interested in my brand. And that's a perception. And I want to make sure that the perception I give off is one that echoes, mimics, represents my personality and my personal brand. So again, I'm learning all the things of the nuances of how I show up for myself, where I'm able and how I'm able to show up for others, whether that's in my home, personal life, friends, sorority, et cetera, all the way through business. And then, where do I lean in? I know I need to drink more water. I know I'm at an age where my diet should be, something I really consider seriously. I understand the benefits of exercise for longevity of life. So these are things that I'm constantly reminding myself, and I'm adding timers and reminders in my phone, which is so cute to me. It's like, get up and walk for 15 minutes. And I live in a neighborhood where that's very much a refresher for me. So,
That's good. So, why, Lori, thank you. You have brought so much clarity and fire to this conversation. It has been packed with a kind of wisdom that we don't want to gatekeep. We want to grow from it.
But before we close, tell our listeners how they can stay connected with you and tap into your work, brand, and art in your next offering.
so if you catch my out of office, it'll most likely say I'm on a beach because the ocean is my happy place. But if you don't catch my out of office, you'll reach me at Brown Girl MKTG, which is short for marketing on social media. You'll reach me on LinkedIn. My name is Y Lori Taylor. First name is spelled YLORIE. And then also my email is just my first name again, which is ylori at browngirlmarketing.com.
Well, this has been a masterclass, 100% in understanding what it means to lead boldly. We've talked about moving at pace that matches vision, not urgency. What does it actually look like when making high stake decisions? And we really appreciate the opportunity for you to be here. Subscribe so you never miss a moment of momentum. Like it if it sparks something real. Comment if it hits home. Share it with the woman building big, battling burnout, or breaking through.
All right. Well, let's build momentum. Why, Lori, thank you for being with us today. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you both for having me. Loved the conversation.
Thank you.